The observation deck of the Valorian's Grace hummed with the low thrum of distant engines, a sound that should have been comforting, but only amplified the silence between breaths. Lyra pressed her palm against the reinforced glass, watching the debris field drift past, twisted metal that had once been homes, ships' entire lives reduced to floating monuments of loss. Behind her, in the corner of the sterile medical bay adjacent to the deck, a small form shuddered with each rasping sob. Torin was young, perhaps equivalent to a human 7-year-old, though his species, the Valorians, measured childhood differently. His fur, which should have been silver blue and lustrous, was matted with ash and dried tears. The traumatic patches where it had singed away during the attack revealed skin that shimmered faintly in distress, a biological warning system that his people had evolved over millennia. The other survivors avoided him, not from cruelty but from their own drowning grief. The Valorians processed loss through isolation, through meditation chambers and ceremonial silence. A weeping cub violated something fundamental in their cultural consciousness. It meant the loss was too great, the trauma too fresh, the future too uncertain. Lyra understood. She'd read the reports during her xenoanthropology training, but understanding didn't make it right. She crossed the bay slowly, her boots barely whispering against the deck plating. The ship's artificial gravity was set to Valorian standard, slightly lighter than Earth's, giving her movements an almost floating quality. Torin didn't look up as she approached. His 6-fingered hands clutched a piece of burnt fabric, something that might have been a blanket or a parent's garment. "Hey," Lyra said softly, lowering herself to sit against the wall beside him. Not too close, not touching. Just present. Torin's sobbing hitched, confusion breaking through grief for just a moment. His large opalescent eyes, triple-lidded for atmospheric variations, flickered toward her before squeezing shut again. "I know," Lyra continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know it hurts. I know you want them back." The universal translator in her collar worked overtime, converting her words into the melodic, clicking language of his people. But some things needed no translation. Payne spoke every language fluently. "My family." Torin's voice cracked, young and raw. "They're gone. Everyone's gone," Lyra nodded, even though he wasn't looking. "I lost my family too. Different war, different system, but loss is loss." This made him look up. Valorians prided themselves on their advanced civilization, their centuries of relative peace before the scourge had arrived. The idea that humans, these strange, durable creatures who'd joined the galactic community only decades ago, understood extinction-level loss seemed impossible. "How did you survive?" Torin asked, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into something heartbreakingly childlike. "By sitting with people who were sad," Lyra said simply. "By letting them sit with me. By refusing to let the silence win." She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small device, a human music player, ancient by galactic standards, something she'd carried across 3 sectors and 2 wars. "Want to hear something?" Torin didn't respond, but he didn't refuse either. Lyra pressed play. Soft piano music filtered through the bay, a nocturne from Earth's long history. No words, just melody. Something that predated space travel, that had comforted humans when their world was all they knew. The Valorian cub's ears twitched, the small tufts of fur along their edges perking slightly. Music was universal among spacefaring races, but each species heard it differently. To Torin, the piano's notes probably sounded like rainfall on crystalline formations, like the singing caves of his homeworld that no longer existed. Fresh tears streaked down his face, but the violent sobbing had quieted to something softer, more rhythmic. Grief given shape and permission. "Why are you here?" Torin whispered. "The others. They need their meditation, their silence." "But humans are weird," Lyra said with a small smile. "We process pain by sharing it. We survived our evolution not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we took care of each other. Even when, especially when, it hurt." She shifted slightly, extending her hand palm up on the floor between them. "An offering, not a demand. I'm not going anywhere," she said. "You can cry. You can be angry. You can sit here until morning. I'll be right here." Torin stared at her hand. In Valorian culture, touch was reserved for family, for mate bonds, for the deepest connections. To touch a stranger, especially another species, was unthinkable, but his family was gone. His species was scattered. The old rules felt like dust in his lungs. Slowly, hesitantly, Torin extended one small six-fingered hand. It hovered over Lyra's palm, trembling with the weight of decisions no child should have to make. Then he made contact. His skin was warm and slightly textured, like suede over electric current. Lyra felt the faint bioluminescence of his distress pulsing against her palm. She didn't pull away. She didn't tighten her grip. She just held. The hours passed. Other Valorians drifted through the bay, their faces carefully neutral, their eyes betraying nothing. But Lyra caught their glances, the subtle shift in their posture when they saw Torin holding a human's hand. Not all reactions were negative. Some seemed curious, others perhaps envious. The music played on a loop. Nocturnes gave way to preludes, then back to nocturnes. Lyra's legs fell asleep, then woke tingling, then went numb again. She didn't move. Torin's sobs eventually gave way to hiccups, then to ragged breathing, then to something approaching peace. His grip on Lyra's hand never loosened. "Tell me about Earth," he said eventually, his voice small but steady. So Lyra did. She told him about oceans and mountains, about cities that touched the sky and forests that grew in darkness. She told him about humanity's mistakes, their wars, their near extinctions. She told him how they'd survived anyway, stubborn and adaptable and refusing to let the universe tell them they were finished. "We have a saying," Lyra said as the station's artificial cycle shifted toward morning, the lighting warming to simulate a sun neither of them would see today. "It takes a village to raise a child. But sometimes the village is just two people sitting on a floor sharing the weight until it's bearable." Torin's eyes had closed. His breathing had deepened into something approaching sleep. But his hand still held hers, fingers interlaced in a grip that spoke of anchor points and survival. When the medical officer made her rounds at dawn, she found them like that, a human and a Valorian cub, different species bound by the simple, radical act of not being alone. Torin slept holding Lyra's hand, and for the first time since the scourge had taken everything, he dreamed of something other than fire.